Is it okay for the church to get involved in the public arena? Should Christians be actively involved in the free elections of the United States of America? Faith Wins is an organization dedicated to engaging pastors, congregations, and Christians in the public arena. Why, you may ask? Because the influence of Christians needs to be felt around this country. Jesus is the solution, and we need to bring biblical solutions to the marketplace of ideas before it's too late, and we need to do it now. There are over 80 million eligible Christian voters in this country, but only 30 million regularly participate in the elections. This needs to change, and Chad Connelly is going to tell you why in just a minute. Check us out online at faithwins.us. That's faithwins.us. When we sit on the sidelines and hope for a better future, the enemy wins. When we mobilize, register, and make our voices heard, faith wins every time. Hey, welcome to the Faith Wins podcast. I'm your host, Jim Brangenberg, and I'm joined by Faith Wins founder, Chad Connelly. Chad Connelly, welcome back to the podcast, the Faith Wins podcast.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited.
Hey, we've been doing these shows all about the five main objections that you get from pastors when you approach them about holding a non-partisan voter registration drive the last 2 weeks of September. And today we're going to talk about one I think that's near and dear to your heart. Well, Chad, we don't know the first thing about running a voter registration drive. When a pastor says that to you, what do you say?
Well, I'll tell you what I'm thinking at that point. I got him now. I got him. I've been dragging him to the finish line. If he gets down to that one, I know we can get it done. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that they've been convinced they need to do one. Now the excuse is, I don't know how. So a couple things is a lot of churches, it's small enough or size-wise that a pastor can actually conduct it himself. Now, they almost always assign somebody, right? And here's what I tell them, that, hey, pastor, you're too busy to do this yourself. But I'll bet you, and I think you heard me do this in the Florida meeting, Jim, I'll just bet you, pastor, that there's somebody you know in your church who is fired up and wired up about what's going on in America. And they want to do something about it, but they don't know what. That's the person I want you to ask to do the voter registration drive. All you need to do, pastor, is talk about it from the pulpit. And then I'll let them know this is simple. So what we did was we had a young pastor to record a video on faithwins.us, how to conduct a voter registration drive. I've even done a podcast about it. It is so simple, but we even get down to the nitty gritty. Hey, get permission. Obviously, if it's somebody in the church, they need to make sure the pastor is aware of it and going to promote it, etc. Put a table out in the foyer, the vestibule, some high traffic area. Get the forms from your local voter registration office, the election commission. Get plenty of pens there, have them on hand, and then just talk to people and let them fill it out. It's just not difficult. We did the video so people would watch that short video, go, wow, this is easy. And I won't even go through all the detail here because we've already done it on the site for people, but it's totally simple. Here's the other piece. If it's a big church, then you're going to have to go through multiple layers of pastors, probably. Maybe there's an associate pastor or a youth pastor or some other leader within the church who kind of drives it. Because the bigger the church, the more disengaged the pastor is from day-to-day activities. He's already got a big enough role at the church. And so you're going to find somebody else. We call that person the church liaison. If we need to talk to the church liaison, we can certainly do that. One thing we're going to do to overcome this too, Jim, this year is my team is going to call personally every church on our list. If they've seen me speak, if they've been on one of our 86 Zoom calls, if they've been in a meeting with me these last 7 or 8 years, and I have their email, we're going to email them. We're going to say, hey, what do you need from us to conduct voter registration? And what we're going to do then is direct them to our website. We're going to let them know that we have a link for every single state for the regulations, because there are some nuances. There's some differences to the forms they need. We're going to walk them through the process so it takes the burden off of them completely.
And the bottom line is, Chad, this is why Faith Wins exists, isn't it?
It really is. Listen, I think that God let me see the spiritual side as a Christian who got convicted 25 years ago, then wrote a book on American Christian history, who's been frustrated with the Christian non-involvement. And then he let me see the political side. I was a state party chairman. I've been heavily involved in over 100 races. I ran myself for Congress. Then I got to work at the Republican National Committee. I sat in rooms at the highest level of politics. I understand the political side as well. I think a lot about what Reince Priebus said to me when he hired me. He said, Chad, you're an odd duck in this deal. You love the Lord and you understand the political process. Now, I hate being an odd duck, but maybe I had to see both sides of that to understand the importance of it and then how to apply it. Let's face it, the spiritual side doesn't understand politics. And let's also face it, a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people in the political world, it's just not on their radar. They don't care. Unless they're a believer, they don't care. And then when you look at some people who are hostile to things of the Bible and biblical policies and beliefs, they don't want us involved. So not only are we going to conduct voter registration, Jim, we're going to measure it. I can't find any organization that's actually measured it. Now, I don't need to know that Jim and Martha registered at First Baptist Church or Calvary Chapel in Tampa, Florida. I don't need to know that. Here's what I do need to know. And when we call these pastors, we're going to say, we're going to know their town, right? Tampa, Florida. What church you at? First Methodist, whatever their name of the church is. How many did you register? We just need an estimate. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we need their number. So we're already collecting that data from some churches. I know that one church I talked to the other day had registered 120 so far. And that pastor heard a Zoom call we did in early June. He's now run a voter registration drive every single Sunday. When I spoke in Alaska in 2014 for a pastor named Dr. Jerry Prevost, when he introduced me, he said, I believe it is sinful for a church not to make sure Christians vote every single election. He runs a voter registration table in the front foyer of his church every single Sunday year round. Now, pastors don't have to do that, but what they should do is make sure it's a priority of the people so that it gets done.
Chad, Faith Wins makes this easy for any church. So let's just say somebody finds out about this and like, okay, we're willing, but how do we get started? Where do they go on the Faith Wins website to get started?
Yeah, faithwins.us has a link of all of our videos. And one of the videos is called How to Conduct Voter Registration. If they'll scroll down through the front of the page, they'll go to the resources and they'll see that video that walks them through it. We also have a printout of that. They can print it out. They can take it with them. It's just very easy to do. I think it'll surprise people how simple it is.
And the bottom line is that when pastors start to talk about this from the pulpit, people will go, finally, I've been waiting for my pastor to talk about this. This is not something people are going to start throwing tomatoes and eggs at their pastor. They're going to start hugging him and going, Pastor, I've been waiting decades for you to talk about this.
No doubt about it. They want to know. We've talked about this before. There's a book called U-Turn by David Barton and George Barna, and the disparity between what people want to hear from their pastor and what the pastor teaches on. The difference is the current issues. And so a pastor doesn't have to say, and shouldn't say, you must vote for this person or this party. I believe Christians should never vote on person or party. We should also always vote on policy and principle. We vote on those things because they don't change. We don't vote on the personality or the glitzy ads or even the party. We vote on what those candidates believe in. It puts the responsibility on us to find out what they believe in. And so when we do that digging, when a pastor says, let's do voter registration, a nonpartisan voter registration drive, that pastor is not saying you must vote for a Republican or a Democrat or vote against anybody in particular. They're saying vote. Vote your biblical values. And most pastors, when you go up and ask them, hey, I need to know how you stand on this because I don't understand these issues or this candidate, pastors will answer that question because they're human too. They have thoughts. They just simply can't stand the pulpit and say, this church says you must vote this way. They can't do that. It literally, by the law, by legal ability, a pastor can take their hat off and say, my name is Pastor so-and-so and so-and-so. I can't tell you who to vote for, but here's who, me as a citizen, here's who I'm voting for and why. And they can do it in the pulpit.
Wow. Those are powerful words. Now we've just obliterated the excuse, we don't know how to run a voter registration drive, because you don't have to. Faith Wins does. Thank you, Chad Connelly.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate you, brother.
Check us out online, faithwins.us, because remember, when you register to vote and you vote your biblical values from a perspective of a biblical worldview, faith wins. Hey, thanks for listening to the Faith Wins podcast with Faith Wins founder, Chad Connelly. I'm your host, Jim Brangenberg, and I want to ask you to check out Faith Wins online at faithwins.us. That's faithwins.us. Your vote is needed and necessary, and we all need to learn to engage in our system of free elections right here in the United States of America. If you're not registered to vote, please take time to do so on your local county voter registration website and do it today. In an upcoming election, vote for candidates supporting biblical values and a biblical worldview. Until next time, remember, when Christians engage in the public arena, faith wins.